Hey, everybody, you're back with Dave and Ed. This is episode 11 of To the Death podcast.
Today, our guest is Alan Teo. He is the owner and head instructor of Renzo Gracie, Fort Lee, and Woodland Park.
But he's not the head instructor of Woodland Park. You don't even know our guests. Jamie instructs at Woodland Park.
Fine.
He even says on the episode that he hasn't been there in who knows how long.
Why you got to bring that up? He's a busy man.
I'm not throwing shame.
Shame.
Shame on you. I'm not throwing shame. I actually am happy to say that Alan and I, we have some things in common here. We are both Creonches. We both left our original team for brighter pastures.
But you're a double Creonch.
What was the first? Oh, never mind. But I don't think that's a Creonch because... And is it Creonch or is it Creonte?
I don't really care.
It's not... That one doesn't count.
Who cares? You are where you are now. You got there somehow, and you're good.
Perfect.
People like you sometimes.
Most people don't.
Well,
I can live with that.
I do kind of. I'm on the fence.
I know. You bounce back and forth. Some days you hate me. Some days you like me.
What was this PSA?
Right now...
What was the PSA
Oh,
you were
the PSA.
talking about?
So I've been getting a lot. Okay? It's an excessive amount of messages about the... It's actually a question, and then it goes into a statement. The question is... Does Ed really think he's funny? He's not. He's very dry. Does he think he's funny? Everyone. Ed is funny. I think he's hilarious. So.
You're talking about one person, Ron.
No, I'm not talking about one person.
Ron.
I'm talking about several
I talked
people.
to Ron and I punched him in the face.
After episode 10, I got a lot of feedback specifically about your humor.
I am very funny.
I think you're funny.
Yeah.
I agree. So I disagree with all of these people. So the PSA is Ed is funny. You have no humor.
I don't care if people think I'm funny or not.
You are funny.
Maybe I'm not. Maybe they're right.
No, you are funny.
My wife doesn't think I'm funny.
Really?
Sometimes she gets angry.
She's an odd bird.
Go ahead. Say it.
That's what I had to say.
Tell my wife what you think about her.
That's it.
She
That's
just got done making fun of your stupid sunglasses.
My sunglasses are very nice.
Got them at the dollar store.
Not the dollar store. I got them off of Amazon, Amazon.com. They were $12.
You think they'll sponsor us?
No. So, yeah, on this episode, we get to hear about a fun start to jiu-jitsu. I really found this episode interesting. What about you, Ed?
I mean, I've already listened to it 20 times.
You're all those downloads? Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, very cool. Alan mentions a bunch of names that Jamie brought up, George brought up, Yanni, and it's all coming together if you're paying attention. If you're not, I don't know.
Start at episode 1.
There you go. Well, not
and pay
episode
attention.
1. You could skip the first 3. They're all garbage.
No. I love 3 is hilarious. In 3, you'll find out who Yanni's going to California with. Me, not Ed.
All right. We played that game long enough.
I'm bringing it back.
Well, shut it down. What else did we talk about in this episode?
We talked about bringing up daughters in jiu-jitsu and ADCC.
Yeah, very good story. Not even Renzo knew the story fully.
Ooh, big reveal from Alan in this episode.
Are we going to mention anything about the video? Because he talks about a video.
He does talk about a video. So I was going to save it for the closing, but since you brought up the video, I found said video very quickly. I was creative in my search and I found it. So I will sell the link to the video. First bidder, highest bidder. Which one should it be?
I feel like we should just blackmail him.
Blackmail him?
Yeah, we don't need the money from other people.
I don't know if he's the kind of guy you want to blackmail.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I forced my way in.
You couldn't force your way in.
I couldn't force my way in, no. So he was just a fantastic host as well. Invited us to his home to record this episode. Anyone that wants his home addressed, again, that's the highest bidder too.
That's what doxing is. You give out his home address, you just doxed him.
I didn't give it out. They have to pay me first.
Did you even enjoy yourself?
I did enjoy myself. I listened. The problem I'm having lately is I'm listening too hard. I love story time. When you're done training and you're sitting on the side and you're listening to everybody's stories, especially like if you don't see someone for a little bit, I love story time.
Yeah, so one of the things we did talk about was all the stories that are told on the mats everywhere after jiu-jitsu. When you sit down after training and you talk, and he was talking about how people used to just gather around Renzo and he would tell these great stories, and I feel like that's everywhere. Everybody just wants to connect, the connection. Right, Dave?
I like the connection. I love story time. This was a great episode for stories.
I was surprised. The more we got into this episode, right? This is one of our longer episodes. The more I'm like, how come there's not more information about Alan out there?
There really should be, based on his past experiences. He has quite the competition background, and he's been around for a very long time.
If you think about jiu-jitsu in America, I mean, how long has it really been around?
When did he start? 94?
Yeah, so he was basically there in
The beginning.
at the beginning of at least East Coast Jiu-Jitsu.
A pioneer.
There you go. But he's taken that all the way, and he's been involved the whole time, and he's had these different experiences that we get into, and it's fantastic.
And just like he says in the episode, he came up with some legends. Why is he not amongst those legends? He really should be, in my opinion.
So make sure you tell everybody you know about Alan Teo. Gotta listen to this episode. I hope you guys enjoy it. Dave, do you have anything else before we send them into it?
Don't forget, message me, PM, DM. If you want the link to that video, I will sell it to the highest bidder.
Don't do that. But I hope you guys enjoy. This is To The Death Podcast.
Episode 11.
My mom and I had a conversation one day, and it's funny because she said, you should really start thinking about taking martial arts. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, you're going to college soon. She's like, you're going to be off on your own. Maybe you should learn some things. I was kind of a wise ass too. So she probably was like, you might say something that might get you in trouble, but
She saw the future. You better be able to defend yourself.
Absolutely.
When there's no parents around, you need to be able to defend yourself.
So what year was this around?
I graduated high school in 93. In high school, I started right around my junior year taking Kung Fu. I was taking a form of Kung Fu called Snake Fist. There's actually a video on YouTube of me doing it. I will never tell anybody how to find it. And I don't think anybody will be able to find it. But anyway.
Now we will.
Yeah, you probably will. But I started with that, and I quickly became like the assistant instructor doing that. And then I went to college. So within like 2 years, I became the assistant instructor at the school. And went to Boston University in 93. When I got to college, I asked my Kung Fu instructor, I said, hey, look, I've always wanted to study Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do or other arts. What do you think? He's like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You're doing Kung Fu. That's it. I don't want to have any more discussions about it. I was like, all right, cool. Got up to school. I started like a martial arts study group. So we would all go down to like the athletic center and we'd train. But some guys were boxers, wrestlers. We had a ninjutsu guy. Taekwondo guys for sure. There's a bunch of guys with different backgrounds. This is 93. And right around like 94-ish, somewhere around there, my friend, my one buddy who's actually a black belt now, he's up in Boston. His name is Michael Zenga. I don't know if you guys...
Yep, BJJ Fanatics.
That's right. Mike Zenga, giving you a shout out. So Mike, my buddy, he's like, Alan, he's like, you ever hear Gracie Jiu-Jitsu? I'm like, what? I'm like, no. He's like, hey, there's a seminar coming up. Let's go. We ended up at a Hickson Gracie seminar. I had no idea who Hickson was.
So now up to this point, you were training with all of these different styles. Were
Right.
you teaching each other techniques, or were you primarily doing what you knew and they were doing what they knew?
We were teaching each other.
That's great.
Right. It was like a sharing of stuff. We would spar. We'd figure out what worked, what didn't work.
Okay.
It was just a fun way to get to know people.
What's interesting is we talked to George, Yanni, and Jamie. They came up more traditional for longer, and they kind of got taught to stay in your lane. Like Taekwondo is the best. You shouldn't even look. You were kind of already fishing around, and you weren't scared to try new things out.
Right. And that's what I wanted to do. I'm a Bruce Lee fanatic. He died on my birthday. I've got all this history about like how I've come to become a fan of his.
Did you watch his 30 for 30?
30? No.
Thank you.
What?
We were going to make a bet. We forgot to bet.
Oh, thank God we did.
There's a documentary now. Ed keeps telling me.
So
He's
it
been
just
telling
came
me about
out-
it all day
it
because
came
we
out
knew.
last weekend, and it's on ESPN Plus if you have that.
Okay.
It's fantastic. An hour, almost 2 hours of
On
just
Bruce
his
Lee.
life. Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Okay, because I've watched some of the movies, and it gets kind of frustrating, like the way certain parts of his life is portrayed. But I'm definitely going to watch that.
See, I wish we bet. We were going to bet something good too.
Oh,
Yeah.
you guys should have.
No, because I knew that you trained the Jeet Kune Do, and you actually you still teach it, or you did teach it?
I'm not actively teaching it. I mean, when people ask me to show them stuff, I will. But Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is by far the most popular thing that
I mean,
people wanna learn.
basically what Bruce Lee did was he spread it worldwide. Martial arts. I mean, basically, that's why we're here right now.
Right.
Is at a tiny scale. Is we want to spread jiu-jitsu still, because there's still people that don't really have the full idea of what it is.
Oh, for sure. I mean, look, it's so new in this country. Like I said, 94, I did my Hickson seminar. I had no idea who he was. And then at the end of the seminar, he's like, all right, gets everybody in a big circle. He's in the middle and he rolls with everybody. And after that, I was like, holy cow, I got to try this out. And that's how I got kind of exposed to it.
That's so early. comparatively. I mean, that's
Right.
as early almost as you could start it up in this area because that's when they moved over here.
Right. So what happened was I was in Boston, and there's a guy named Joe Maffey.
Name's familiar.
Joe Maffey, he's trained a lot of fighters, pro fighters. He's a superb martial artist. The guy's skilled in Jeet Kune Do. I think by now he's got to be a black belt under Hickson. But when I found him, he was a purple belt. So Mike Zenga and I used to drive from Boston to wherever Joe's school was, and we'd take privates with Joe. And then at the time, Joe was working with UFC fighters, so I actually got to work with some of those guys, in some training sessions and stuff.
Some of the original guys from the 90s, you're saying? Like
Yeah, well,
1 through
from
5.
Joe's camp. Yeah. There was a couple guys. I mean, they were a lot physically, bigger than I was.
Must have been like a lot of flow rolling, drilling.
Yeah, I was the first concussion I ever got was at Joe's school.
That makes sense for the time.
Yeah. The story goes like this. I triangle choked a guy, and he picked me up and slammed me on my head.
Oh.
Like people stand up and drop you. So I remember my knee going to my face, waking up, and that was the first time I actually saw 3 people in front of me of the same person. Like right out of a cartoon, right? And then I was moving my wife, then girlfriend, out of her apartment that night. I moved her out of the apartment with a concussion, and then I had to have a friend watch me, overnight to make sure I didn't like die or whatever. But
Now, did you remember for the rest of the sparring session that you were supposed to hit the one in the middle?
Yeah. Well, we talked about that. That was funny, but I was like, wow, this is real. It's like a real thing. And I was like, my head rattled. It was
That's crazy.
So most of your training in the beginning was no-gi, or did you mix it?
No-gi. Most of my training in the beginning was no-gi, and then because Joe was mostly a no-gi school.
Did you have a set teacher at that time?
So what happened was, at the end of my freshman year in college, I went back home. I lived in Kinnelon, and I went and saw my instructor, and it was really obvious I was training in other arts, particularly grappling arts. And then I got kicked out of that school. Yeah, he didn't like the fact that I was learning other arts. And what I've learned is that as an instructor, you should encourage your students always to seek out higher levels of learning. It is our duty to tell them that we are not the end all be all of instruction, that sometimes there's a better way to build a box.
So now that we're here and we're sitting with you, one part of all of this is we now have to plan a class trip. So Ed and I will grab all of my students, and we're going to pile into as many cars as it takes. And once everything's reopened, we will be driving down to come and see you.
Hell yeah. And as a community, that's what we, kind of should be doing.
One of the things that we keep trying to reiterate is the growth of jiu-jitsu itself. I mean, you've seen all kind of the iterations from the 90s, the early 2000s, then the boom, the UFC boom, like in the early 2010s. I feel like we still are on the upward trajectory. So there's more than enough students to go around for everybody.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not a matter of students. What I tell people is I like it when people open up other Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu schools kind of in the area, because it raises the consciousness of the society of the area, and more people that learn about Jiu-Jitsu, better for everyone. We've got millions of people in America, and people are, fighting over, a couple of students here and there. It's, that's no good. There's plenty. And sometimes, I've had students leave me, and that's okay, because sometimes my style of teaching is not the way they like to learn, and that's fine, and you shouldn't fault somebody for leaving you, because they didn't benefit from your teaching style.
That's just another thing that we're trying to do with this podcast is spread jiu-jitsu. So like I said, we will plan a class trip to come see you. We're going to plan to go see Emily, and
Fantastic.
Vice versa. Everyone is welcome to come visit us. And people can travel and train wherever they would like, and I encourage that. I really feel that just spreading all the jiu-jitsu you can is the best way.
Yeah.
So let's get back. So we're in the 90s. Who was your first jiu-jitsu coach? So now your guy, he kicks you out of your school. Where do you go now?
I was still in college, right? So I trained 3 years with Joe Maffey while I was there, but I never received formal rank with him. While I was training with Joe Maffey, and now that I got kicked out of my Kung Fu school, I started traveling to Oklahoma and California to work with JKD practitioners. So somewhere, I think it was 94, 95, I found out about a seminar, Tulsa, Oklahoma, like the most random, middle of the country place I've never been. I'm like 18, 19 years old. So I call my mom, like, Mom, I want to go to this martial arts seminar. My parents both have always been so supportive in my martial arts endeavors. I mean, whether it's, helping me pay for travel costs or schools, whatever. My parents footed the bill for everything up until I got a job and moved out of the house. So I go to this seminar, and there's 3 people at the seminar: Terry Gibson, Mark McFan, and Frank Cucci. And for those of you guys that don't know those 3 people, Terry Gibson, Mark McFan, and Frank Cucci are some of Dan Inosanto's top students. Okay,
There's people listening that probably don't know who he is.
I don't know who that is.
Oh my God.
Okay,
he's Bruce Lee's first black belt. Is that what it is?
I don't know if Bruce Lee ever gave him a black belt, because in Jeet Kune Do they don't have belts.
Okay.
But he was certainly Bruce's top student.
That's okay.
And I would call him his protege.
Okay.
He is the man in JKD today who, in my opinion, shoulders the burden of that torch of Jeet Kune Do. Yeah, that's who Dan is. He's an incredibly dynamic personality. I think he's got to be in his late 80s now.
He's
got to be. So anyway, I go to this seminar. Terry Gibson's, martial arts, but Frank Cucci and Mark McFan both had military backgrounds, and Frank Cucci was a Navy SEAL. So at this seminar, we learned boxing, kickboxing, knife and stick work, some grappling stuff. So that opened me up to Jeet Kune Do. So in college, my main focus was to learn Jeet Kune Do and become a Jeet Kune Do instructor. So I would travel out to Oklahoma and take privates with my instructor, Terry Gibson there. I worked a little bit with a guy named Paul Vunak. I don't know if
I've heard the name before.
Yep. I've worked a little bit with Paul. Didn't work out so great, but it was a fantastic learning experience with him. And I took a lot of Dan Inosanto seminars. So
Okay.
I worked with him a little bit. He's a great guy, and it was just such an honor to be around him.
So did you have aspirations for mixed martial arts, even though it was in its infancy?
Okay, so the one reason why I wanted to do Jeet Kune Do, I went to Boston University to study business, but somewhere around like middle to end of my sophomore year, I decided I wanted to go into executive protection. I wanted to be a bodyguard. So I called my mom.
Hey, Ma, guess what I want to do?
Yeah, exactly. What every mother wants to hear, right? I want to throw myself into harm's way for other people. But anyway, I said, Mom, I found this course in Colorado called ESI, Executive Security International, run by a guy named Bob Dugan. That was my focus in college. I wanted to learn weaponry, knives and sticks. I wanted to learn, good empty-handed arts, punching, kicking, grappling. And then I was taking this bodyguarding course online. Back then, the online was AOL dial-up.
Right. Yeah.
The internet was in its infancy, right?
Yeah, I know what that is.
you know what that
I'm
is?
older than
You guys, how old are you guys anyway?
I'm 39.
How about you?
You're
guys?
39? You look younger. You definitely
All
look
right,
younger
good.
than 39.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now I'm all mind gabobbled because now I got to guess you.
Yeah, guess. This is a great game. We love this
Give me
game.
the size up. He's looking at me. Here it goes.
And don't worry, you're not going to hurt his feelings if you guess too high or too low.
34, 35?
He looks horrible for his age, doesn't he?
I'm going to be 31 on Saturday.
Okay. Damn it.
It's just because you're so overweight.
The only reason why I guess that high is because I'm like, it's got to be somewhere around this range. I don't want to say 20s because that's some guys are like, baby face,
I wish I was.
No, aside from jiu-jitsu, we have nothing in common. We'll talk and he'll talk about video games or Pokemon or something. I have no idea what he's talking about.
All his students think I'm 40.
That's great, isn't it?
I know.
And he looks horrible for 40.
Right. So Chris Kelly, I tell him he's 100.
I have to look this guy up now.
He's my partner at the school. He's he's one of the managers and helped do some of the coaching for the U.S. Olympic judo team.
Okay.
Yep. So he's my counterpart.
Was he on the Zoom call that one night with us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. When we were outside, I was barbecuing.
Yes.
I think. Yeah. There was a couple. Yeah, he was there.
All right, so we're in the 90s. You are becoming a lethal weapon.
He doesn't let us veer off track. He tries to stay right up. We'll get there.
I just want to
Do you have unlimited time, Alan?
Yeah, I'm good. I
Perfect.
have nothing
Go ahead,
going
Ed.
on.
Put us back on track, Ed.
We're in the mid-90s. Your focus is on becoming just a protector.
Right.
So you're not focused on straight jiu-jitsu.
No, not at all. I wasn't. I mean, sport jiu-jitsu wasn't really around until I graduated college, like in America.
Right.
Like Grappler's Quest, Naga.
Yeah, George was talking to us. He said maybe once or twice a year they would have a
Yeah,
tournament.
if that. And then there were these like fly-by-night tournaments that they have one tournament and you never hear from them ever again. And I did a bunch of those, right? So yeah, I came out wanting to do that, and because I didn't know sport jiu-jitsu. There wasn't, IBJJF in a big way here in America. It probably existed in Brazil back then. I don't know. But yeah, so I graduated college in 97. My dad and I are in his kitchen, and my dad's like, "So, son, what are you going to do now?" And I say, "Well, Mom's been paying for these bodyguard courses I've been taking, and I've been flying around the country taking these martial arts courses. I think I'm going to go into executive protection and be a bodyguard. And my dad's like, He's like, nah, bad idea. He's
I got a better idea.
Right. He's like, come work for me. He's like, instead of being the bodyguard, be the person that's getting bodyguarded.
That sounds like a good idea.
Right. I mean, it's solid advice for a parent to give their child, right? Mm-hmm. I've got 3 daughters of my own, and if they wanted to be a bodyguard, I'd be like, I mean, I love police and I love first responders, but if my daughter told me, oh, Dad, I want to be a soldier, or Dad, I want to be a cop, I'd be like, that's dangerous, right? That's dangerous,
I would say the same.
So at that point, and this is 97, I was like, all right, I'll go work with my dad. So I started working in the family business, the plastics business I was telling you about before. And I was like, well, I still love martial arts, and jiu-jitsu was on the come up. So I ended up looking it up, just some random, I think I looked it up on the internet or something, and I found Fabio Clemente, and that's where I started.
Was he in the same location he is now?
No, he was on 14th Street, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. And then he moved to, my college roommate had a place in, I forget what street it was, that he was there for a while in my college roommate's parents' building. And then he moved to the new location, which I heard is awesome.
It's
fantastic.
Beautiful.
I heard good luck to him, and hope he does well there.
For sure. So you're training with Fabio. So you lived in the city at that point?
No, I lived in Fort Lee.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would work during the day and then drive in at night and train at night.
What were classes like? There was a lot of people in class?
There was about 15 to 20 guys on the mat at any given time.
Did you start getting rank from him now?
Yes.
So you started at white belt?
Started at white belt and quickly got to blue within, I would say, like a year or so.
So then did you transition from doing mostly no-gi to doing mostly gi, or were you doing a mix?
Yes, yes, definitely. Once I really put on the gi and figured out what the gi was all about, I was hooked on it. Like even now, because of my schedule, I don't teach no-gi classes, but I prefer training in a gi. And which is weird because a lot of my competitions that I'm known for, all of them are no-gi.
So now Ed always says that savages train no-gi and gentlemen train in the gi.
I stand by that.
Well, the crazy thing is like, okay, so I started competing at the end of the 90s, 97, 98, 99. I think my first tournament, I have it on video somewhere, was like 97 with Fabio as a white belt. Like I said, we were talking about, there weren't IBJJFs, there weren't Grapplers Quest. So it was really tough to find a competition that specialized in any one set of rules or any one set of type, or gi or no gi. Like there'd be the first competition I went to was at a school in upstate New York, and it was in like their dojo. And they just said, okay, these are the rules that we're going to fight by. And it was like, okay, it was jiu-jitsu, but it wasn't like IBJJF rules.
Right.
So, yeah.
Was it more like submission based, or they had their own kind of weird point systems?
No, it was definitely jiu-jitsu based with like mount is 4 points, this is that. But it wasn't like, now the rules are very, very detailed and what you can do and what you can't do, right? So.
What kind of refs? It was just in-house refs?
In-house refs, okay. Right. Most of the tournaments back then.
Did they play any favorites?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I never tried to let it go that way. Just go for submissions, right?
So Ed and I are having a challenge match, and we're having a difficult time trying to find unbiased referees.
We're not having a difficult time. It's
all
not
right,
difficult.
because he wants his instructor to be the one and only referee, and I just don't think that's fair.
Yanni. He is a very honorable.
Yanni's great.
So why do we need more refs than that? He wants to have like 2 refs in the corner.
Yeah, and they have to come from my side so that they can wave back all the points.
Ridiculous.
I don't know. You might have to get Marcelo Garcia in there or someone like that. Renzo.
Do you know him? Could you call him?
I don't know
ask?
Marcelo. I don't.
Just send him a text.
You guys.
Send him a text message and ask if he'll ref our ridiculous
I'm sure
match.
he doesn't have a busy schedule, and he would love to ref 2 terrible.
That's fantastic. Then we'll just put him on the list. Oh, let's get back to Alan competing, and he got his blue belt from Fabio. Does that put you back on track?
All right, hold on. Yeah. Let's go a little bit into this challenge match, a little bit more.
You want to go back into the challenge match? So I actually had some specific questions for you.
Okay.
Because I know that you have a very in-depth knowledge of self-defense. I was wondering if you could teach me any self-defense techniques that Ed might not be aware of that I could use to submit him pretty quickly.
I need tricks
out of the match. Look at the size of him. I need some, and he's very strong. I need tricks.
Yeah, he looks like a strong dude.
I need tricks. I'm not gonna just be able to take him
for the soft
straight
tissue, bro.
on. Soft tissue.
Soft
Should I do like dim mock?
Yeah. You know the funny thing about dim mock not to get off subject,
No, everything's off subject. Keep going.
but how do you practice dim mak?
Can you explain what
With the bricks,
What is
like
the
blood
mak?
sport.
No, it doesn't work that. No, I had actually trained with somebody who practiced dim mak.
People don't know what the mak is.
The death touch.
Oh my gosh! So this kid was a really nice kid. Tommy, man, was he out of his mind? He had like buckets of like, and look, I've done some hand toughening training where I took rocks and I wouldn't do it now. That's because I'm smart, right? Like I'm not going to go punch a bunch of rocks or kick something that doesn't like give, right? This guy, he was making this stuff that he put on his hands after he practiced hitting this stuff. And he's like, oh, you can't, don't swallow it because it's poisonous. I'm like, what kind of person puts poisonous stuff on their skin?
You don't do that normally?
No.
Oh.
After you've put your hands through like rigorous training, you might have cuts or whatever.
Exactly.
But my point is with dim mak, okay, they say if I touch you here, you may die in like 3 days from like liver failure or organ failure. If I touch here, this is going to go. How do you practice that? How do I say, David, Lude, let me practice giving you a heart attack. And I'm going to hit you like 15 times and like in 2 months you may have a heart attack, but let's...
I just want to tap him. I don't want him to die. So maybe we need to go in a different direction.
Right,
Do you have
right.
some
Dim-mak is-
secret technique? I'll drive down and I will come visit you. We won't tell Ed about it, but I need some secret. I saw on the little film that you did with Samuel Rivera, I saw you showing some good wrist locks from the closed guard.
Yeah, wrist locks work.
I am unwrist lockable. You can take that to the bank.
Take that to the bank.
Take that.
It's not happening.
Along with the no-gi savage thing. Remember all the horrible things Ed
Hold
says.
on. I believe everybody should do no gi and gi.
Yes, definitely.
I'm like you. I just prefer the gi.
How often do you train no-gi, Ed?
Almost never.
To be honest, guys, I can't remember the time I've really trained no gi.
Yeah.
And that's only
He
because
didn't mean that he was in support.
He supports me.
I do. I support both of you guys, but my preference is the gi. That's just how it's been. Even when I was training and competing no gi, I was training half the time in the gi.
Now, did you see that change from no-gi to gi as you aged, or was that just as soon as you found the gi, you fell in love?
Yeah, as soon as I found the gi, I fell in love.
Okay.
When I started competing, one of the things that was nice about the no-gi divisions, and I don't know how many people put this together, there's no belts.
Yes.
It's like beginner, intermediate, advanced.
yeah.
Sometimes they have a pro. You could be a blue belt fighting a purple belt fighting a brown belt, purple belt fighting a black belt in the advanced divisions. So that's what I kind of liked about the no-gi stuff, is that it gave me the opportunity to really like kind of test myself and see like where I was in relationship to, other competitors out there. Because there were a lot of guys that were out there that I really respected that I was watching at the time, maybe one belt or two belts ahead of me. A purple belt in the 90s is a big, heavy belt. Like that, you might as well have been a black belt.
I started in 2006, and George Cernak was my instructor, and he had a purple belt. And I didn't see another purple belt besides him for about a year.
Right. Now it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more mainstream. But back then, to be able to face off in a tournament against somebody who might, be ranked higher than you was exciting.
I have a quote here for the brown belt. So we're both
Sure.
brown belts. Is a short belt where you continue the mastery of the art and continue to hone your teaching skills to coach others. Brown is a very heavy belt as you're expected to defend it, help others in a meaningful way that is beneficial to the individual, and to promote and show the beauty of the art. Now, both of us have been brown belts for 4 years with no black belt in sight. What do you have to say about that? Are you embarrassed?
I'm very happy at this rank.
I didn't say anything because I'm speechless. That's a long time at brown belt. That's, yeah, I mean, I'm sure if you're by now and your instructors in Brazil, I'm sure if they saw you guys, you'd get it. I mean,
I just saw, we just drove straight from Yanni's school to here.
well,
and,
it's been, if Corona didn't hit, you probably would have gotten it.
Nope.
Oh, we need to refer you to episode 2.
Oh boy.
Ed trains for a week, takes a week off. Trains for 2 weeks, takes 3 weeks off.
Yeah, that's...
How do you feel about when your students take a break?
Okay, sometimes a little break is good. Like I know before Corona, the longest I've ever taken off from jiu-jitsu is maybe like a week or two. And sometimes I come back stronger.
That's for sure true. I mean, a week or two, that's a drop in the bucket for me.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I'm an addict, right? When I get into something, I really like to do it a lot. And it keeps me in shape. It's for my wife. She likes the body.
It keeps me in shape too. As you can tell, no jiu-jitsu several months now.
But I want to make it easier for Dave to beat me, maybe. So maybe I'll take a couple months off. I come back.
That's it.
He's still...
It doesn't matter.
You know what you just do? Just do the Tanya Harding trick.
That's a good idea.
Actually,
I'm going to get somebody else to do it for me.
You would want to do that.
Fantastic.
You love
No, I
me.
want to beat you fair and square.
Yeah, fair and
Well, I
square.
don't care if you're in a wheelchair as long as you can podcast.
That's it. You don't have to you can wheel you around.
Well, we are trying. Well, both of us. He's trying to keep me on the mats as much as possible, and I want to get back on the mats. And I've actually been itching to get back now that I'm told that I can't. Usually, when people say you can train, I'm like, maybe I don't have to. But now that I can, I wanted to train more than ever.
Right.
He's a low-level opponent for me to beat because I want to start competing again.
I will kill you.
I'll get the low-hanging fruit here, and then I'll start to do some more competitions and make Dave proud of me.
That's what I want. I want him to train more because he's a great training partner. Edit that part out. And I like having him on the mat.
Sure.
So he'll train for a week and then he'll ghost me. And I'm like, I don't message him and harass him because I know how he is. But when he comes back in again, I'm like, where have you been?
Well, that's a great thing about jiu-jitsu, right? And that's a thing about jiu-jitsu that is kind of, I think, unique. You know, in most sports, you know, you kind of want to have people that you can beat, right? Like you want to be the number one guy, right? But in this sport, you're always looking for the better guy.
That's right.
Right. That's really kind of something unique with jiu-jitsu. Like I always want to train with like somebody who can kick my ass because then I know I'm going to get better. Right. So
he has the option to train with Yanni, but he comes and trains with me and my white belt students.
I train with both. I actually love a white belt room. I just really enjoy it
because he can tap everyone.
No. Come on.
He likes to pump himself up.
That's not what it is. Part of it. But no, the real thing is I have a very fundamental game. I like fundamental style. And obviously white belts don't have good fundamentals. So it's very easy for me to just see and point out. And I really enjoy doing it.
Right. And there's something to be said for, you know, I've heard people say what percentage of your training should be with people you can beat, what percentage of your training should be with people that sometimes you can beat, and what percentage of your training should be with people that can absolutely kick your butt. You know, so there is something to be said for training with the lower
What are the
belts.
percentages? I want to know them.
I mean, I don't want to get quoted. I don't want to get quoted. I think, you know what the funny thing is? I think I may have heard that from one of John Donaher's interviews or something.
I heard Joe Rogan say that you should really roll with blue belts. Like if you're a black belt, you should roll with a tough blue belt and you could try all your moves with pretty good resistance. They have good enough fundamentals where you're not really cheating.
Right.
So-
I mean, also I'm 45, right? So at 45, I'm not looking for the Mondial match in my gym. I want to go into my gym, work out, and I can't leave broken every night.
Why are you looking at
I'm
me?
saying you're easily broken, and
I'm easily broken, but I still love those hard rounds.
Yeah,
I
hard
love
rounds.
them. That's what I crave. I know that everybody says you should train with blue belts, and this is something, once again, everybody will be against me. I want to train with everyone better than me. I don't want to train with anyone lower than me, except for Ed.
he doesn't want to get his black belt because then he'll have a brown belt beating up.
That has nothing to do with it. I have been a brown belt for 4 years, and I would say last year working with you and Yanni so much, and Kyle and Dan, I feel like I am the best that I've ever been, and I actually finally feel 100% comfortable at my belt.
That's great.
And that's what I want. So why would I want the next belt? I'd rather be the best brown belt than the worst black belt.
Here's the key to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's being comfortable in uncomfortable positions. So right now, you being comfortable at brown and you're saying, like, when you first got it, you're probably like, oh, I got a lot to live up to. This is a heavy belt. This is a lot of responsibility, and it is. But when you start to grow into it, as you start to feel comfortable for it, that's when, in my mind, and you're already instructing, you're already promoting the art. You guys already have a positive image. I mean, there's no reason why you guys shouldn't be.
Yanni, I think Alan is calling you out.
definitely
Not at all.
There's
at your instructor's discretion, of course.
From brown. So we've talked with Emily and Jamie about blue, purple, brown.
Right.
Those are belts that are very important and they have their own criterias. From brown to black, I feel like there's a special criteria that's off the mat as well as teaching that kind of goes into it. What are some of the criteria for you to promote a black belt?
It's got to be somebody who's like giving back to the community and wants to give back. You spend all this time learning this art, this secret art, and all of a sudden you want to keep it to yourself. That's not the way life works. Life is all about sharing and about, a sense of community and stuff like that. So that's a big part of my black belt criteria is what kind of personality does this guy have? Is he only in it for himself, or is he helpful around the academy? He doesn't have to be like, Mr., donate all his time to charity and all that. But like if a white belt comes to you on the mat and he's like, hey, can you spend 5 minutes and explain something to me? The person shouldn't blow him off. It's your responsibility as a black belt to pay it forward. That's
fantastic. What is the base technical skill that you would accept for a black
More
belt?
than half guard, Ed.
I just play half guard.
I mean, my criteria is a little bit different than some schools because of some of my martial arts background. So I do a lot more self-defense in my classes than other Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu schools may do. Some schools are more focused on like strictly competition, some strictly, self-defense, and the Gracie method, the Horion side of the family Gracie method. Mine is a little bit more loosey-goosey. I don't really have like a curriculum that I say he's got to know 5 armbar escapes, 10 guard passes, and this and that. I don't really have a curriculum like that because most of my guys that have been with me, they've seen all my stuff. The majority of my stuff, 90% of it they've seen. So, if I'm able to get somebody to black belt, chances are they've got, a good sense of what I'm all about. And also a black belt should be able to defend themselves. If you get into a street fight, you're not pulling guard or doing something, that you shouldn't be doing.
You tell me I can't pull guard in the street?
Yeah, unless there's grass behind you, but Yeah.
Every competition I've ever done,
pull guard.
I pulled guard.
But that's competition, right? That's competition. That's okay.
Right. That's a game.
Right.
I like to play games.
No, but that's fine. See, and that's the thing is that, jiu-jitsu is at the point now where it's so heavily focused on competition that there's rules that, you can't do this, you can't do that. Well, why was the UFC so interesting to us in the beginning?
No rules.
Right.
Don't do it, Ed. Don't do it, Ed.
We got to talk about
Don't do
it.
it,
He
Ed.
set it up. I got to spike it. How do you feel about heel hooks in the game? You can't do that.
I told you what he was going to say before we got here.
Yeah,
He's an old school guy. I know the answer.
Yeah. I look, if I'm training with a person and it's, just a friend I'm training with, I'm doing everything. I'm not doing heel hooks just because, IBJJF says you can't heel hook in a gi. I was training with Travis Stevens one time, and we were going, and Travis is a tough dude.
He's one of the best in the world.
Right. When I first met Travis in 2010, he had jiu-jitsu knowledge, but he didn't have like what he's an encyclopedia now. But I remember rolling with him. I think this was just maybe a couple years ago, and I was just messing around, and I grabbed a heel hook because we were just playing with legs, and he goes, "You can't do that," and I'm like, "Why not?" He's like, "IBJJF." I'm like, I was so conflicted, and I know when Travis and I have talked about this a couple times, I don't actively teach heel hooks in a gi, but if somebody in my class, in an advanced class, wants to do a heel hook in an advanced class in a gi, tap.
Blasphemy.
I completely agree. And
listen, once again, if it was legal in competitions, I would be all in.
He needs words on paper to change.
Words on paper.
And that's how you say it though. If look, we can do it in class. Just don't. And that's what gets me when people talk about competition techniques. They're like, is that competition legal? Well, maybe it's not, but maybe it'll save your life sometime. So what does it really matter? If it's in a competition, just don't do it. You're a thinking human being. You got a brain in your head. If I show you something and you can't use it in that competition, just don't do it. But if I show you something and it's meaningful, like I show headbutts, so, I don't show eye gouging or anything like that. But
fish hooks?
I don't do fish hooks, not like that.
But this comes from the Jeet Kune Do. Try to use everything, and you're coming from the protect yourself aspect of it.
Right.
I'm just a fat, sweaty man. I like to I like to play games at the gym and just goof around.
That's okay, but you got to understand that, by adding more rules to jiu-jitsu, I don't want to say dilute the art because you're not. You're adding more restrictions. So almost like how do you guys feel about Taekwondo not having grappling in it? You're like, oh wow, that's preposterous. If they want to be a complete system, they should have some grappling, but they don't do it in competition. So now people look at Taekwondo as an incomplete system because it doesn't have grappling in it.
We can agree on something.
Well, if you look I like to look at it more from the judo aspect.
Sure.
Now the judo very limits itself, but it's very exciting art. It's in the Olympics, and I think that helps promote and spread the sport. I think the same thing needs to be said for jiu-jitsu. If it's not fun to watch, you're not going to get that aspect out of it. There's people that train jiu-jitsu for a long time that hate watching competition, just especially in the gi.
Right.
There's all these rules.
Right. And rules, the rules that are made to keep us safe, I'm all for. The rules that say, okay, don't reap the leg.
Don't slam.
Yeah, don't slam a guy on his head if he's got you in a triangle choke. Those types of things.
So then when, for instance, I'm teaching, I show heel hooks, I show leg reaping, and I say, this is not allowed in the gi. This is not. And then the same thing with slams. You're not allowed to slam. If someone was to stand up, you can hook their leg here and now they shouldn't be able to pick you up. Things like that.
And that's exactly how you should be teaching it is, hey, you can't do this in competition, but you could do it here.
I want to take it one step further. I think we should push to promote heel hooks in IBJJF because of guys like John Danaher who have really been pushing leg locks forward in the past couple years.
Yeah.
It's a very intricate system he has, a lot of control. It's not a lot of
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of injuries with leg locks. And that's it. I mean, it's got to be done in a way to keep us safe,
right?
The competitors safe. Like I wouldn't want to see 8-year-old kids heel hooking. Like I think because they're still developing. They're not their ability to sense pain maybe is not as sharp as in adults, or I don't know. There's other considerations that we have to take.
One of the things I was saying is it should be. I mean, if you have a toe hold, you could turn somebody's knee inside out with a toe hold, but you only do it at black belt. So I think that should be the same thing with heel hooks. It should only be done at the highest levels.
Absolutely.
I just thought of an argument against myself. Dave should have thought of this a long time ago.
Go ahead.
Is we talked about how some guys don't want to tap, and if you don't tap to a heel hook, your leg's going to get turned inside out.
Instances of that all the time. That's probably what Alan was talking about. Seeing plenty of injuries from leg locks. We were just talking about it on a couple of episodes ago when we were talking about Vinny Magalhaes.
Okay, and here's the flip side of it. And usually those injuries, where I've seen them happen is more like the intermediate beginner type levels.
Where they don't understand?
Right. You saw some of my highlights. I mean, I was targeting legs when I was competing a lot because people panic.
I still panic.
People panic. I had a lot of people tap to me before I even really strapped it on. Just because, whether they, I kind of got known for that style later on in my career, like when I was competing. But I'm convinced that certain people that knew how I fought knew that a high percentage of my submissions ended, with some sort of leg lock or knee or ankle lock or whatever. And I think some of the competitors that I had fought, I might not have an answer, and I don't want to get hurt. And at an advanced level, we understand the risks. We've seen it. We've seen people get hurt. You're like, I don't want to be that guy. I'll tap early.
Right. And a modern instance or example of that would be Eddie Cummings lately. I mean, I guess that's not very modern since he hasn't competed lately.
Sure.
But for a while there, as soon as he got on people's legs, that he didn't even need to sink the submission in. People were tapping. They knew it was over.
It was over. And Danaher's system really ties up the legs that, you can't go anywhere else. I call it buying real estate. Like, I own you now. Like, that leg is mine. It's no longer yours. I'm controlling that. That's my real estate now. No longer yours until I give it back to you.
So that's what I'm saying. There's more. The fundamentals of it is kind of expanding and coming into the spotlight, and I think it's going to become safer and safer. And I don't think it has to be today that they let heel hooks in the gi, but
right.
I think down the line it really should be looked at, and it could make the sport more exciting, which makes the spread of jiu-jitsu a little bit easier in the long run.
Right.
You're wrong.
I mean, I like what Eddie Bravo did with the combat jiu-jitsu, where he was allowing the competitors to slap. Actually, one of my instructors competed in there, Sadeko did it, and he did really well, but it combines not closed fists, but slapping, and that in and of itself is a very, disorienting technique if you hit somebody properly.
I would love to bring up Eddie Bravo. Did you compete against Eddie Bravo once upon a time?
Yeah.
Dude.
He's setting you up. Spike the ball.
So yeah, Eddie and I ended up at the same Abu Dhabi trials in California. And
around what year was this?
2002.
So this was for the 2003 Abu Dhabi.
So okay, I'll backtrack. So I was with Fabio Clemente in the 90s, and then right around 99, give or take, I made the switch over to Renzo's, and the reason I did it is because I wanted to. I was like, man, maybe one day I could do Abu Dhabi. I had a conversation with somebody that basically pushed me to move over to Renzo's, and I never told Renzo that was my aspiration. But when I started training with Renzo, I just competed, did reasonably well. And one day I got a call at my apartment. I didn't even know that Renzo had my home phone number. So he calls me. He's like, hey, Alan, we're talking. I'm like, hey, what's up? And he's like, hey, you want to go to San Diego? I'm like, what? The trials. And that was a big deal because in order to get into Abu Dhabi before the trials, the only way to get in was to be invited. You had to be like the top guy in your country, absolutely known, absolutely have done something that's, off the charts. And then, you're already a superstar before you get to Abu Dhabi. That's why they want you there.
Can we back up a little bit? So
Sure.
99, you go to Renzo's as a blue belt?
As a blue belt, correct.
So when you get to Renzo's, was there you come from a different school. Was it like guys looking like, who is this
animosity?
guy? Yeah, animosity,
Okay.
stuff like that.
So I knew some guys at Henzo's from the competition circuit, competing all those years. One of the guys was Matt Serra.
Terra.
Yeah, Matt. I got to know Matt in like 98. I was at a tournament, and I remember Matt was, I think, a brand new brown belt at the time, if not like very old purple belt. He was fantastic jiu-jitsu. And I remember I'm in the locker room where it's a jiu-jitsu tournament, and he was the super fight. So I remember I'm at the urinal, and I was still with Fabio's team, and in walks Matt, and I'm like, oh, hey, what's up, Matt? He's like, hey, what's up? I'm like, huge fan. I love the way you fight. He's like, hey, great. And so we started talking, whatever. And so when I got to Henzo's, Matt came to me, and he kind of like took me in. He's like, hey, Teo, it's like the mafia. Once you're in, you can never get out. And I'm like, all right. And he really, I knew Jamie Cruz. I knew Carl Massaro. There were a couple guys that I'd already known when I got there.
Oh, that's good. That made it a lot easier.
Oh yeah, and Henzo's the best, right? So the minute you're in there, hey, what's up, champ? What's going on? I mean, Henzo makes everybody feel like you're his long lost best friend.
That's great.
So it was a really easy transition.
So from 99 to about 2002, did you get your purple belt by then?
I think I may have still been a blue, if not a brand new purple, when I fought Eddie, because Eddie was a brown belt. Remember, we're no-gi tournaments, so
right.
I could have been a blue belt, maybe an old blue belt back then. So I went to the tournament. Henzo's like, hey, you want to go? And I'm like, Henzo doesn't even know that, like, this is my life dream. Like, oh my God, like he just called me up and he just served me on a dinner platter. My life, like up to that point, like I was working to do it, but I wanted to earn my way in, right? And so Henzo gave me the shot, and I didn't ask for it. He just said, hey, you've been doing well, and at 145, he's like, yeah, I want you to go in there. I was like, all right, cool. So we did.
That's
well, now he knows that was your dream because he listens. He's a big fan.
Oh, really? Oh, no. Okay.
He's just joking around.
Well, he may find out from somebody. Eventually, one day I probably will tell him, and I've seen him. We hang out. He's been here a couple times since this whole Corona thing's broken out. And when I see Henzo, we don't really talk a lot jiu-jitsu. We talk world affairs. We talk what's going on in his family, my family. He's met my parents. I mean, he's just like, there's so much interesting about Henzo besides jiu-jitsu. Then when you pile on jiu-jitsu, he's just a fascinating guy to be, all of a sudden, even more so.
So it's 2002. You go to San Diego. Henzo goes with you?
No.
Oh, he just sent you out there?
Right. I went with, it was like Jamal was one of the guys, Sean Williams, Joe DRC. But anyway, yeah, there was a small group of us that went out there.
Ed, do you know any of those names?
Joe DRC, we talked about with Jamie.
And nobody else.
Well, Patterson, he mentioned him.
Jamal Patterson.
Yes. He has a school.
Sean Williams.
Sean Williams. He has
Williams guard.
I know that.
Okay, all right. Just checking. Ed has zero knowledge on jiu-jitsu.
I'm getting
you
there.
would never know he does jiu-jitsu.
And these are guys, when we went out there, I think DRC was a purple belt, if not brand new brown belt. Williams was like, I think a purple, if not brand new brown belt. I mean, these guys were like we all kind of came up together, and next thing you know, we're at like these Abu Dhabi trials.
That's fantastic.
It was awesome. It was great. So that's where I ended up fighting Eddie. I won my first two matches, and then the finals was a 20-minute match. So
20-minute match.
Yeah. So Eddie and I fought for 20, and then he beat me. I think it was by 1 point at the end of the match.
So that could have been you.
Could have been you. You
that tapped out Hoyler.
Well, I ended up going to the main event anyway.
Oh, you did?
I did. Okay, so what ended up happening was I took a silver, and I'm bummed. Henzo calls me up again at my house. Hey, Alan, my man, what's going on? Hey, Henzo, what's up? Hey, you want to go to Sao Paulo? Sao Paulo is where Abu Dhabi was being held. I'm like, Henzo, I didn't win. I only took a second, like silver. Only the winners go. He's like, nah, my man, you're going. And I don't know exactly the real particulars of the story, but Henzo gave me a nice little pep talk. He said that some people had seen the tape because the Sheik, this is after 9/11, so the Sheik wasn't able to travel to see all these competitions. So I'm assuming maybe he got wind that I had a good run at it, and then Henzo was able to put together a team, and then so that's how I got on Henzo's team for the Sao Paulo, Abu Dhabi.
Wow. So is that when the Henzo team started? Because I remember when I was training with George in 2006 that they had like a little trials at Henzo's Academy.
Right. I was there. I did that trial.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Henzo team, I mean, Henzo, I'm assuming because of his relationship with the Sheik, has always had the ability to bring in and suggest outstanding practitioners. I don't know this for a fact. I'm just assuming just because they're friends, and Renzo knows everyone, and so he can say, hey, this guy's good, that guy's good. That's how I ended up there. It was a phenomenal run. I did 3 trials. One trial I couldn't do because I'd just gotten out of knee surgery, but I got accepted to go up there. So I went up there and my knee seized up on the plane, so I couldn't fight. But did 3 trials and 1 main event.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So Eddie Bravo, we were talking about, you're a big fan then of kind of tournaments that he's running, just helping grow the sport, like the EBIs and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, after the whole Abu Dhabi thing happened, I got to know Eddie a little bit better. I went out and visited him in California because I know Henry Akins. Do you know who Henry is?
Yes. You don't know who that is?
I have no idea who that is.
Oh my God. He's one of Hickson's black belts, right?
Henry's a good friend of mine. I know his brother, Matt Akins, and that's how I know Henry, because Matt used to train at Renzo's in the city. So, I went out to go see Eddie out in California. We hung out. At the time, he was a DJ at a club. So we
heard the stories.
Yeah.
What kind of club was that now? Don't talk about it on this podcast.
It's PG, right?
PG.
But yeah, I mean, man, I've had so many great experiences because of martial arts. I owe like my whole life to it, and that's the thing about martial arts. And I tell my students, it's not the belt. It's the art itself is what brings us all together. But what keeps us together is the culture of it.
Yeah. The experiences, the family.
We joke a lot about being brown belts forever. We don't care about the belts. We just love showing up, making fun of each other, teaching white belts. That's the fun part.
That's what it's all about. Back in, people say the old days of Renzo, old days, and even what I do in the mats of my school, after class is done, we hang out, we talk. I
think it's like that at every school I've ever been to.
We would call it Renzo's story time, because Renzo would be sitting there. Next thing you know, it's like 15 people around him. And we just start talking about stuff, random topics. Maybe he's playing backgammon and people may be trained. But we would be there literally at the academy for like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And then we'd go eat Tasty D's. Like Tasty D's was one of like John Donaher's favorite things in the city at the time. And so I would take John home and Renzo would come along. We'd meet at Tasty D's or whatever, and we'd all have our little yogurt ice cream things and sit down and talk some more. It was awesome. Those days were fantastic.
Don't you wish you had microphones back then?
Oh my gosh.
I don't think that they wanted any evidence of anything that happened back then.
I'm sure there's some pretty good stories you could tell.
Yeah, I mean, it just, man, to be on those mats. I mean, George St. Pierre, I remember seeing him around. I remember seeing George St. Pierre at jiu-jitsu tournaments. He was a blue belt. And he was a nice guy back then. Everybody's like, oh, that guy's Canadian. He was a great guy. Him and I think who's that other guy, the redhead from Canada, Mark Bocek.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic martial artist too. I mean, dude, all these names are coming back to me because at the time I was really competing, I was so immersed in it, and it was the gritty stuff because there were no podcasts or the magazines just started coming out. Like, all these great fighters that are today like kind of known or lesser known because their generation is gone. I had the benefit of seeing them come up. Like, I remember seeing George St. Pierre compete as a blue belt.
Right. Emily was saying it was like folklore. People would tell stories about him, and they would just be like these mythic figures, and then you get to meet them, roll with them, and nobody knows who they are except for you.
Right.
And Ed definitely doesn't know who they are.
I still don't know who they are, but
like the Florian brothers, Kenny.
Yeah, Kenny Florian.
Great guys. I got to know them through the martial arts and stuff. It's just been such a really good experience.
So let's get into that time period. So the reason I started doing jiu-jitsu was Ultimate Fighter 2005, watching Kenny Florian on there. Mm-hmm. And, I got to do this now. So you go there, and now Dave's there, and we're starting. And now you could really see the rise in people starting to train. Schools are opening up around our area in North Jersey. Around 2005, 2006, what was your life like in jiu-jitsu?
Okay, so I got my black belt in 2007. So I was at the tail end of my competition days. My jiu-jitsu I was still competing because I got the notoriety from my Abu Dhabi competitions that I did. Started getting invited to do professional divisions. So like Kip Collar, I did a pro match for him down in Florida.
That's Naga.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
That would have went right over my head.
I know. That's why I told you.
And that's when I fought Parampina, who was a fantastic martial artist. And then Brian Simmons had Grappler's Quest, so he would have the pro divisions. So that's really what after Abu Dhabi was like. I stopped doing I didn't stop doing the amateur stuff, but I was requested to do more of the professional matches at these tournaments, type of stuff.
So 2007, you got your black belt. So you're a 4th degree black belt now.
3rd degree.
Are you due for your 4th then?
I think next year. I think it's next year, something like that. I get it so confused because then it's like 3, 3, and 3, then 5.
Oh,
right?
okay. I thought it was 4 threes.
Is it 4 3s?
I don't know. I assume you would know better, so
You know
we're
what?
not really sure.
I'm like you guys.
We'll
not caught
consult
up
the
on
rule book.
Stripes, right? Like Henzo gives them to me when he gives them to me, so it's like, okay, cool, another stripe. But I think, yeah, I think I'm due for my 4th because Jamie is due for his 4th,
Yes.
and I'm like, I think a year or so after him, I get my 4th.
He's overdue a year, so
I think so, yeah, something like that.
so you're about there.
Yeah, I think next year I'm due or something.
You got your black belt in the year I got my blue belt.
Wow. Okay.
I started in 2007, so
Okay.
Ed got his white belt.
yeah,
Okay.
kinda.
So I have a story about this, putting things in perspective like that, right? So I had a student who I was training with him. His parents were there, and I think he was like 16 or 17 at the time. Well, I didn't tune him up, but I beat him, whatever. And he slams his hand on the mat. He's like, "Damn it!" I'm like, "What? What's wrong?" He's like, "Oh, you kicked my ass." I'm like, "Wait, how old are you?" He's like, 16. I think 16, 17. I'm like, "Do you realize I've been doing martial arts longer than you've been alive?" And I looked at his father, and I'm like, gosh, we're old. I'm old. I can't believe I had to say that to somebody, but yeah, that's the reality of it. I've been teaching martial arts since I was 18 in one way or another.
So 2007, you get your black belt. When did you open your first school?
2007.
2007. So you get your black belt, you open your school.
Jamal and I opened up in Saddlebrook at a place that had Apex Wrestling inside. Damian Logan and Eric Norgard were running the program there. They're 2 outstanding New Jersey wrestlers. There was another kid, Foley Dowd, and Dane Tabano. I don't know if you know the names.
No, I don't know those
Dane,
names.
I think, is a black belt now down in South Jersey. But anyway, so we opened up our program inside of a gym. At one point, we tried to buy the building and tried to, because the owners didn't really want the gym anymore. The gym itself wasn't financially doing well. So they bought in, other programs to kind of try and pump the gym up. So there was a point where, and I opened that program up with Jamal Patterson. So Jamal in 2007, Jamal and I have always been close friends. He was my roommate for the first Abu Dhabi trials I did. And Hodger was my roommate when I was in Brazil.
Do you know who that is, Ed?
Hodger Gracie?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So Hodger was my
He's the
roommate.
pinnacle. In my opinion, he's the best that ever lived.
Oh, he's awesome. Hodger's fantastic.
I love his style. Everything about Hodger, that's
Well, if you like the basics and you
for
like
sure.
that kind
I
of
love that.
meat and potatoes,
I love
jiu-jitsu,
I like to have the same rule every time. I sweep, I pass, I submit from the same spot every time. And that's him. that's what I'm going to do to him. I could tell you the sequence that's going to happen in our match, and it's probably going to be exactly that way.
It's not what's going to happen.
fantastic.
I'm going to throw him off. I'll pull guard.
So, what was it like for you to train? You were, competitor. That was your mindset. When did you, specifically, did you know you wanted to have your own school eventually?
No, I enjoyed teaching. When I got my brown belt, I asked at the main academy if I could help assist teaching the beginner classes. So I think Magno was running the classes, Igor was running it, Gregor. So whenever I could, it wasn't like I was on a schedule or anything, but whenever I could, I would pop in and try to assist where I could. And then when I got my black belt, Jamal was like, "Hey, let's start a small program someplace." It was never really meant to be like a big. Well, I think, hey, okay, cool. Let's, we have our black belts now. Let's share the art. North Jersey, this area, there wasn't that many practitioners.
Yeah, for sure. It was
black
wide
belts.
open. Yeah.
At all. So we opened up that program. Within a year, the people that own the gym were like, "Listen, we tried to work things out and buy the building so we could stay there. Like, listen, you guys," they wanted to do something else. And we were just like, "All right, we'll leave." So my brother knows some people that own, well, his wife's cousin's husband owns a Gold's Gym in Teterboro, or ex-husband rather. So we moved our program there in 2008, Jamal and I, and that's where Emily started working for us, doing she was basically our administrator over there, and we stayed there for 2 years. We built a huge facility.
You got aces working for you. Emily is the real deal.
We had Apex Wrestling with us. We had Emily. We had, the time, it might have been, I forget who was doing our kickboxing program, but we had all the top aces, and we had a boxing room. We had a really good Mark Pupnovic. He's a known boxing instructor. I mean, he was running the boxing program. Everybody was specialized in what their program was doing. So we had the wrestling program that we had off the chart. Apex Wrestling is still, to this day, one of the best wrestling programs or schools in New Jersey. I would say maybe even in the country, one of the better ones.
I've actually heard of Apex Wrestling. I just haven't heard of the exact wrestlers you were talking about.
Right. So, I mean, these guys are like legends in New Jersey. So then Jamal and I were in Teterboro for 2 years, and we had a falling out with our business partners there. The relationship had deteriorated over time, where they wanted to restructure our relationship, and Jamal and I just weren't ready to do that. So Jamal and I ended up moving our program over to Woodland Park, where the Kamal Judo School is. They had a vacancy there that they had to fill, so we took the spot, and then Jamal had it's a far commute for him, and he wanted to open up in Kenilworth. I think he's in where's he now? Kenilworth, or
I'm not sure.
I forget. He's down by, I think, Newark Airport, or down by that area. So Jamal wanted to do his thing, so we separated. We still talk and stuff. It's still good, but so I stayed in Woodland Park from 2010 to 2013, running that program.
Did you open the school there, and then Kamal came to you, or did you go to his school?
I went to Kamal. Kamal was already there for like 12 or 15 years in that location. So I went over to Kamal, and I ran a program there for roughly 3 years. In the 3 years that I was there, I got to work with Travis Stevens. I got introduced to Travis in 2010. I gave him his blue belt on the spot because he wanted to compete in I think it was a grappler's quest. And I said, you can't compete as a white belt. I said, you're judo black belt, so put a blue belt on. So it was really great because Travis used to drive down like maybe twice a month or once a month because his foot was messed up. He couldn't do a lot of judo, so he wanted to do jiu-jitsu. So he would drive down, train with us, and then go in the city and train with, John and those guys. I got Travis to his purple belt, and then John gave him his brown and his black.
So around this time, you open you're in Woodland Park. How often are you going back to train at Renzo's?
Once I opened up a school, it was like mostly full-time. So at the time, from 2007 to 2010, not as much as I used to. I was like a 5-time-a-week guy at Renzo's, if not 6 times, and I was like a mat rat. So once I opened a school, it was like my focus was really on trying to develop that program. And when you're teaching 3-4 nights a week at a program, and then you got to teach a Saturday, there's no time for your own training. That's the problem with teaching, is that, and you find out, is that as you become an instructor, you don't train as much, and you don't get to have your own time. It's not your time anymore. It's your students' time.
I've for sure seen that firsthand. Yanni, when he opened, I was pretty much in there from the beginning, and he would train with Jamie at AMA maybe once, twice a week, and then that slowly tapers off into he's really just training with his students now, and every once in a while you're training.
I mean, I have a hard time getting down to Woodland Park. I haven't been there in a long time. Also, along the way, in 2004, my oldest daughter was born, and then 2 years later, my second daughter, and then a couple years later, my third daughter. So being a father and then having that as like kind of a new goal. My father worked really hard when I was growing up, and, he was constantly working. He was a loving father, but he didn't have time to go to all of our sporting events that we did, because he was building the business and doing this. And I always told myself, I need to make time to do that. So I love to work. And even now, even my school being as close as it is, I don't get to see my kids as much as I would like to.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what that's like. There's a lot of times that I'll miss sporting events or school events. I try and get coverage, or I try and change my schedule around, but that's the most difficult thing with instructing full time.
Right. And that's the thing, is like once you make that decision to be an instructor, you made that choice to help other people and impact other people's lives in a positive way. So you really have to take your role seriously. I talked to Jamie Cruz about this a lot, and talked to other people about mentoring and the importance of mentors and stuff. It's really very important to have people that you can kind of like look up to and model and kind of try and emulate in a way.
And I'm trying to be that for Ed. If he could look up to me and just try and
I can't wait till you guys fight. This is going to be fantastic.
My actions.
It really is going to be anticlimactic. We were going to have to add a rule where we have, instead of subbing ends the match, a sub is 10 points because
I don't like that rule.
No, there's
no. That rule.
Okay, I think by principle, there's no tapping, screaming. There's no tapping. You have to verbally scream.
I do verbal taps all the time because I would rather fight the submission until I can't fight it anymore. And if my hand is tapping, then I feel that I'm tapping too early. So I always verbal tap.
What are you talking about?
I would rather fight it until I cannot fight anymore. My hands are busy at that point. And if I don't say tap, something's going to hurt.
Right, exactly. I know what you're saying.
He's not like that. He's not a tough guy.
I'm a tough guy. Grr.
So, but I mean, man, there's so much in jiu-jitsu you could talk about, right? Like from like the friends and the relationships you forge.
Well, so you just mentioned your daughters. How involved are they in jiu-jitsu?
They all train. They shoot guns and they drive cars. Those are like the 3 things that I'm teaching my daughters to do.
I assumed, of course, they were going to train, and because you want them to be able to protect themselves. My daughters are very young, but I also want the same thing. Maybe not the guns, because I don't even know how to shoot guns myself. But
my 2 oldest daughters are orange belts in judo and green belts in jiu-jitsu. So my oldest daughter, her next belt would be a blue. That's and she's 16 now, so she can technically get it, but we'll see.
She should have it, right?
Yeah.
When a colored belt turns 16 by IBJJF rules, they should be a blue belt.
Really?
I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on that.
Okay. Interesting.
well, yeah, 16's the youngest.
They're both.
But as we said, you like to hold your students back, and I'm in support of that.
Okay, so there's that quote. So I say, okay, I don't like to hold my students back. I like to hold them to a higher standard. And my standards are different, and I don't say they're any better or worse than anybody else's. But, I do talk about when things go bump in the middle of the night with my students. And your wife, hey, David, someone's in the house. Who is it? I don't know. What are you going to tell your wife? Get out of bed and go check it out?
I would.
Like, right? But there is a factor of that we have to train into our students. Like at some point, look, did you guys ever want to get in a car accident? No, but it happens. Of
course. Especially the way Ed drives. I was scared on my way here.
I didn't want to be late.
Right? But things happen. And I tell that to my students. People are like, oh, I'm not a fighter. I don't like to get in fights. I just do this for fitness. Well, guess what? One day you might not have that choice. People don't like to crash, but you do. People don't like to fall down, but you do. Things happen that are outside of our control, and that's part of what I give my students. Like, hey, look, this is how important it is. Someday you might have to use this. It's fun and games here. It's cool. It's great. So with my daughters at 13 years old, I gave both my daughters at 13 to get a pocket knife, an Emerson with a wave and a clip that they can clip on them. And the reason being is because at some point, fantastic. Yeah.
I gotta get some weapons training. I don't have weapons myself. How am I can't teach my daughters to have weapons if I don't know.
Weapons training is so important. It's so important. I do shooting classes now with some guys that are really, really good instructors. So important.
You're gonna have to point me in the right direction. I gotta get on top of this.
Back on the belts, I feel that if anything, erring on the side of caution or demanding more from your students is the better way to do it. Why would you want to give a student false confidence?
In business, they call it push versus pull marketing. Okay. So some customers, you got to push them. Some customers, you pull them. So in some regards, the lower belts, maybe a blue belt or or a stripe or whatever, at some point, it's not bad to give a belt to encourage performance. It's also not bad to give a belt to reward performance. We just don't want to give a belt for no performance.
Right.
That's really what it boils down to. It's like not everybody gets a prize. That's what I hate about today's culture is everybody gets a prize. So I'm okay with pulling a student a little bit, encourage them with that stripe or, not a brown belt, not a purple belt, but, a new white belt. What's the harm in striping somebody and saying, hey, good job. But, when you come to the heavy belts, purple belt, brown belt, look, you better have your head wired on tight because you've been here for 4 or 5 years, 6 years. And, if you don't know it by now, I can't give it to you. Right. So that's kind of where we're at.
It's a lot of responsibility. Each belt is more and more responsibility because you can't sit one-on-one with every student, especially as your school grows. You need to delegate to these upper belts and they need to understand the responsibility they have.
Right.
With these moves when they're showing them, and they better show them right because it's ultimately on you as the top dog at the school.
Exactly.
I have seen stripes used as a tool of encouragement, trying to get students motivated. Yanni gave Ed a stripe on his brown belt. It hasn't worked at all, but he did try. So
you've got your first degree brown, or
I guess.
And what about you?
I don't have any stripes on my belt.
Does your instructor do stripes?
No, he's gonna get a black belt.
No, it's a good question.
No, he's gonna get a black belt probably next year. He was probably going to get this year if the whole
Right.
COVID thing didn't happen. But when his instructor comes up, he deserves a black belt. He's been
Thank you.
he doesn't take breaks like I do.
Right.
He's on the mats every night with his students, pushing technique. I love the way he runs the school. That's why I'm over there all the time, because it's
Right.
fun to be around the community and everybody's getting better.
Are you going to air this just like this?
No, I'll
He's
take-
editing this
Oh,
part
you're
out
gonna
for
edit this
sure.
part
This is
out?
all getting
All right.
edited out.
That makes sense. You're just saying this in front of one person. The world won't hear it.
But I also agree with your style of promotion, because guess what? Yanni is that way. He actually has had his school since 2007 and has not given a black belt from white to black yet, because he holds his students to the higher standard as well.
I've made a couple white to blacks. It's a lot of work, and I don't give it out lightly. You know what I mean? Like, that person is a representative of me.
So now, how do you feel about, I know you said that you did it a little bit differently because of all of your martial arts background, but what about, let's say, for instance, I don't have much self-defense knowledge. I have limited. I have some. It's limited, though.
Sure.
So how do you feel about, you can be honest with me,
Sure.
about me promoting my students with either none or very limited self-defense knowledge?
Okay, according to IBJJF and all these, things, there is no curriculum.
Right.
Jiu-jitsu has a very loose mount, guard, arm bar, rear naked choke, and then, we have our list of things that we can identify, but then after that, it's whatever you want to add in. So that's one of the things I like about jiu-jitsu, is that it's still growing. It's an organic art. It's not defined and stuck in its old ways like some traditional martial arts that we know of are. So I'm okay with that, because at the end of the day, and I know you've shown them some self-defense stuff, Neon Belly's self-defense.
I feel any position from jiu-jitsu can, maybe with the exception of Berimbolo, can be used in a self-defense
100%.
situation.
Have you seen Ryan Hall fight MMA? He
Yes.
goes under. He goes
Is he
right
going
for
to
the
do
leg.
that on a pavement floor that possibly has glass shards?
You don't know. He wears a jacket with a padded back, so he could just roll forward. And
I've seen backpacks that can convert into bulletproof vests.
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, but society and what happens, like this whole COVID thing right now, right? I definitely know that people aren't going to be like a little bit skeeved out from touching. Some people will never come back to the art. Some people are going to say to themselves, look, it's not worth it. Like, I like jujitsu, but I'm not willing to go through another round of like maybe possibly exposing myself to whatever. It's a special person that's going to make it through this time to make it to black belt this generation. Because like, if you were doing it before, now you just had 4 months off, and maybe you found a different hobby to do. Maybe you like underwater basket weaving better. Who knows?
Something that I feel might happen is all of these people that have been craving it, they've been wanting it and missing it, when they come back, it's going to be harder than they remember. And that's going to be a turnoff for some.
100%.
Not me. I've been training my whole life for this. A 4-month break means nothing to me.
Well, because we're so focused on self-defense and that aspect of this conversation, I wanted to talk about how you got involved with teaching self-defense to the Jets.
Oh, okay. So that's an interesting story. I worked with a guy named Martin Rooney.
Sure.
And so Martin, while we were all doing Abu Dhabis and stuff, he was my strength and conditioning coach. Martin one day comes to me, says, hey, I was approached by the New York Giants. This is before the Jets.
Sure.
He's like, the Giants have a spring camp and they want to offer martial arts there. And Martin says, but I have no idea how to integrate it. He's like, he knows the physical, the fitness side and the performance training side, but from the martial arts side, he was a little bit, he wanted to see what we could come up with that was relevant to martial arts and football. So obviously they're not kicking or punching on the field, not in a big way or an obvious way anyway, right? So what we've determined was that attribute development between sports can be shared using martial arts techniques, things like blocking, pummeling. If you looked at, I don't know if you've seen the video, but
I did see the video.
A lot of what I showed them was from JKD.
Okay.
Most of the hand-to-hand skills was Jeet Kune Do based, and then some of it was wrestling based, a little bit of boxing, a little bit of jiu-jitsu with some body control. So I was with the Giants for 1 year, and we had a really great program with them. They went on to win the Super Bowl that year.
That's crazy.
And then they didn't need me anymore because they won the Super Bowl.
Did you go
because
around?
the offensive line was wrist locking the defense.
Right. I actually had I remember the very first time I taught them, the strength and conditioning coach for the Giants was like, well, listen, we're not so sure how this program's going to be. So we're going to put you guys in the Jets locker room. Because remember, the old Giants stadium had the Jets locker room and the Giants locker room. So we're going to put you in the Jets locker room. So we're in there and I'm with Martin, and next thing I know, the players are like, "Hey, Bruce," and they're calling Martin Chuck, like Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris. So we're like, okay. So we start giving this class, right? And this very first class, we're in the locker room teaching them martial arts, just like benches and things in there. Next thing I know, OC's in there, OC Obanari. He's like, hey, I don't see how some of this stuff would be effective for us. I said, well, okay, well, I'm a little guy, comparatively speaking. I said, why don't we grab a hold of each other and you try to take me down? Just put me on my back. And we locked up and he couldn't take me down. And a lot of the guys, I remember we're in the locker room. Next thing I know it, I hear people like, I got $20 on Bruce. I got 10 on OC. I got this. And they're all like betting on what's going to happen. So I got my street creds doing that. In every class, anytime any football player wanted to see or do stuff, I'm game to step up. So I was with the Jets for, I think, six or 7 years. So every year we got the new rookies in. The new rookies, we give our little pep speech, but then we segue into, the martial arts stuff with them. So that's how I ended up with the Jets.
That's wonderful.
So we already heard about the Gracie challenge, and this was the Teo challenge.
Right. I remember one year, because it got to be such a common thing when the rookies came in. So the speech I would give, 50 rookies in the room, 40 rookies in the room, they're all messing around, not taking my program seriously because they're studs in college. They're studs in high school. So, one of the things I would say, how many of you guys black belts at your position in high school? They all raise their hands. How many of you guys are black belts at your position in college? They all raise your hands. I say, how many of you guys think you're black belts in the NFL? Maybe 3 or 4 guys, because they were their draft picks. Mm-hmm. Raise your hands. Everybody else, either walk-ons or whatever, everybody's looking at their shoelaces. I'm like, good, because we're going to establish something right here. I'm like, 6 weeks from now, half of you guys will be gone. Another 6 weeks after that, another half of you guys will be gone. But guess what? I'll be back. So
that's like poking the bear.
How do you feel about yourselves now, guys?
But here's the thing: you guys can screw around during my class and not pay attention, but somewhere somebody thinks this is pretty important. So if you guys don't take your job seriously every day, and the pros were on it, like you didn't have to have that talk with the pros that were in there, and not all the rookies were like this, but I'm just saying some of them were. So there was this one guy, I remember the coach gave me a heads up. He's like, dude, this one kid just came in. He's one of the rookies. I think he was one of the guys that got signed. Like total freaking stud. You look at him, he looked like Mike Tyson. Total specimen. So he's like, look, this kid's got some boxing experience, and he's already told everybody he's gonna try and challenge you at the camp. I'm like, all right, great. Kid comes into camp. I'm with Martin, and I'm like, dude, that kid's pretty big. I'm like, and typically most people, when they challenge me or whatever, I get them in a position, they're like, they kind of don't know what to do. So they kind of like, oh, okay, I'm good. Because they don't know how to tap out. They don't know what I'm doing. This kid, I could see it in his eyes. He was looking to make a name for himself. Confident, very confident. So I look at Martin, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this guy. So I'm like, all right, let me think about this. Conflict resolution, energy. We're talking about, Emily. And I need to make a reputation for myself. If I let this guy punk me, not going to be good for my program.
Lose credibility.
Well, of course. So end of the class comes. He's like, hey, I think, I've heard, I forget exactly what he said to me, the exact vocabulary and the wording of it, but it was like basically like, oh, okay, I hear you go with guys. Where's my chance? So I said to him, and I kind of thought about this long and hard during the class. I said, listen, you just signed like a multi-million-dollar contract, right? Pretty important that you're here. What's the chances you're going to give up? 0. You're a stud. I said, what do you think the chances I'm going to give up is? I said, is it really worth that couple $1 million contract to find out? And he's like, good point. I'm good.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's great.
I wish you would have fought him and beat him, though.
Arm drag, take the back, rear naked choke.
We did stuff where Carl Massaro, Carl Massaro is?
Yes. I know who that is, too.
Really?
Yeah. He when we had the Giants, he kicked a bat in half. We didn't do that for the Jets, but like we were doing all sorts of stuff to just show them the power of martial arts, right? So, 6 years in with the Jets, even 3 years in with the Jets, they all knew me. Like Mark Sanchez was there. I got to see, it was great. It was a great relationship. So when this one guy wanted to step up, it's like, okay, I could make my reputation again. I know I'm going to get screwed up. I know for sure I'm going to take some lumps, but I know for sure he's going to take some too. You know what I mean? And that's really what like life is all about. I want to fight you. Okay, you do? Is it really that important? How important is it? You know, so.
Right. You Sakuraba his arm, you're not invited back next year.
No. Exactly. Thank you. Good point. So.
Well, there's a common thread. Every guest that we've had, the common thread is humility. You've been humbled over. That's what jiu-jitsu is over and over. Every black belt's been tapped thousands of times. You've been humbled. You don't need to prove for your ego that you're better than this guy. There's nothing good that's going to come out of it except for maybe your ego, your reputation gets a little stronger.
Yeah, exactly. And I was talking to another good friend of mine this weekend. I go to the racetrack. We drive cars. Why do we like to do the things we do? Because it's dangerous. It's exciting. Why is it exciting? Because it's dangerous. Because if you don't tap, you could break your arm. If he doesn't tap, he's going to go to sleep. There's inherent danger in what we do. There's danger in driving fast and going to a racetrack. Even though it's controlled, you got to dial back your ego. You got to tap early. You don't press the accelerator pad as hard as you should or as you can, because you should be probably going a little bit slower around that turn because you don't know it as well, or because that's beyond your capabilities. You got to be able to check yourself as a human being, and that's really important.
You hear that, Ed? You have to be able to check yourself.
I check myself all the time.
Not while you're eating.
No, that's true.
Check yourself. Stop from time to time. Take a breath.
Damn it.
You guys are horrible. I mean, let me know what I could do when you guys have this like death match.
So
I have.
It's not to the death though.
It's not
It's to the pain.
It's not even to the pain. I don't like pain. I've tapped. Listen, I don't like to get tapped, and I rarely do, based on
If you've listened to all the past episodes, Ed is the most difficult person ever to submit.
Not ever. I tap all the time. And I tap
Yanni can tap him.
Yanni
Yanni's the only person
not the
that
only
can
person.
tap him.
How long have you been doing jiu-jitsu?
13 years.
13 years. And how about you?
14.
Wow. It's a long time.
But I will tap early every time. I don't wait till pain happens ever. If you got me, I know you got me. But if you don't have me, I'm going to fight until you do. And then once you do, I tap very, very, very early.
I haven't tapped him in 10 years.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. So you guys are really good training partners.
I'm going to dive on his foot so fast.
He's not going to get me.
Heel hook in the gi.
I do have very small feet, and he could, if he did
He
grab
has
a
a
hold
size
of
7. For a man, what do you think about a size 7?
it. A 7.5, please.
Stop it.
Do you have a
It's a
size 7?
It's
Really?
a 7 3/4.
7 3/4. Really?
I wear 8s.
I can wear sometimes a 10.5, 11. Just
He
saying.
shares shoes with his wife.
Oh my God, that's horrible.
Why is that horrible?
No, do you really share shoes with your wife?
I mean, if I had to fit in a shoe, I could.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay, I'll stop making fun of you now that I know
No,
it's
please
true.
continue. Do you see anything else you want to pick on while he's here?
No.
I mean, look at the way he's dressed.
Oh boy.
This is the only way you can take me down.
Are you guys going to ever do like live, like a podcast with videos?
So what we want to do, this is the series we want to make. Eventually, once everything opens up, is a series called Tap Ed.
Well, other than that, we
And also,
do
yeah.
plan on having some roles recorded. We plan on meeting people at their gyms.
If you don't know, Yanni's been doing video breakdowns on YouTube. He's actually going to break down our match when we finally have it. He's fantastic at
Okay.
at
So
breaking
there's
it
going to be
down.
more than just audio content. We're planning
Okay.
on having video content. We're planning on having more of a show.
Sure.
And when we when everybody opens up, ideally we want to come to the person we're interviewing school, have them dominate us, and then do the interview afterwards. Like you were saying, that the afterwards talk, all the endorphins are still live. You know how you just feel good. It's just a great feeling, and just to tap into that and to show people that this is what it's about. Yeah, you want to have fun, protect yourself, learn, but also the community is just as important as everything.
And with all this COVID stuff and now the riots and stuff, it's more relevant now more than ever, because when you talk about arrest and control, police officers, what they are doing when they hang 100%, they need jiu-jitsu. I was at the Newark SWAT range. I know Paul Carnicella, and I've been fortunate enough to be invited to go watch some of their training. And I remember I had a conversation with one of the SWAT team members, big jacked up dude, like really scary looking. And so we're talking, and he's like, "Oh, so you do jiu-jitsu, right?" He's like, "A couple guys were talking about jiu-jitsu." I'm like, "Yeah, I got a school." I'm like, "Yeah, but you guys don't really need that." I mean, I'm patronizing him a little bit,
Right.
but I'm like, yeah, but you guys got AR-15s. You guys are all geared up. You're good. He's like, nah. He's like, actually, the most dangerous time is when we put those away and go hands-on and put the handcuffs on a person. And I knew that already. I just was trying to see if he knew that already. Kicking in a door is dangerous, but what happens when you holster your gun? You think he's complying, and next thing you know, he's not complying again, and you don't have your gun in your hand, and you're trying to put handcuffs on this guy. So arrest and control and that situational awareness. I mean, we can go on and on, but it's nice to see that somebody, and I know a lot of law enforcement, and we all do.
This gets into my next topic.
And look, before you continue with that, what do you see on the wall here but Raphael's weapons? Continue.
Yeah.
I hate you so much sometimes.
I have them above you
hurts.
guys, by the way. I don't know if you guys. I've got.
All right. This sets me
Oh,
up.
boy. There you go. I thought you hated me so much. It's a good thing I pointed that out. Go ahead, Ed. Continue.
Do the names Dave and Derek mean anything to you?
Dave
Dave and Derek.
Dave Longo, Derek.
Absolutely.
Doyle.
Those two are like Bebop and Rocksteady.
Oh God,
In
that's
my
funny.
life. Just two goons.
Oh my, great guys. Some of my best friends. I mean, I'm really close with those guys. I met them through Jamie recently, like maybe 2015 or so.
15. I've been rolling with those two animals since 2008. They're like my jiu-jitsu big brothers. They used to come down to
Great
Yanni's,
guys.
and they used to brutalize me.
Great
Both
guys.
of them.
Yeah.
Which is the reason now you cannot tap Ed.
Yeah, I used to roll with Derek over and over. He used to do neck cranks, wrist locks, everything. He tapped me with every submission there is.
Derek's a monster.
He's
So is
terrible.
Dave.
He's terrible. They're both terrible. They're just bullies. They're two big bullies.
Yeah. Well, they can be, but Dave. Oh man, Dave's a monster too on the mats. That kid's got good jiu-jitsu.
He's not that good.
Wait, we're not.
No. Dave Longo is the reason that you can't get me off of you, because when you're in his half guard, he can get you up and over, attack legs and stuff. So he's so good at that.
Yeah.
He's huge.
Well, now I stick to everybody. I can stick to him too. Dave, come get some.
Yeah, Dave is a big boy.
Come get some.
Yeah, Derek's a big boy too. Big boys.
But their jiu-jitsu style, they love training with Yanni. It's very fundamental
100%.
base, half guard, butterfly guard,
Yep.
all that stuff. I love them.
They've got great understanding of jiu-jitsu. Both, both cops. Well, Dave's a former cop, but they like someone like that goes into a room to arrest somebody. Yeah.
So one of the things Dave Longo told me one time was, when I was a purple belt, he's like, listen, the guys I train in the academy, I can get 8, 10, 12 of them. They would never arrest you. They just couldn't. They wouldn't be able to because they're just not trained.
Right.
A trained person in jiu-jitsu, they're becoming more and more. You're not going to be able to arrest them.
I'll give you my 14 or 16-year-old daughters upstairs that have been training their whole lives. You won't be able to believe what they can do.
Of course.
But these are little girls, and they're this generation of kids that are coming up. A lot of these kids are trained. You wouldn't think it, but like mommy and daddy put you in a jiu-jitsu class or karate class or whatever, taekwondo, and then next thing you know it, they're in college. Next thing you know, they're out of college. And next thing you know it, they're doing some stuff they shouldn't be doing, and then end up on the wrong side of the law. And next thing you know it, they're using their training to resist the law.
But to just flip this real quick on a positive note, talking about kids training, if you've known anyone that's trained any kind of martial art throughout their life and they only did it as a kid, as an adult, they'll still talk to you. If you meet someone and they find out you're a Brazilian jiu-jitsu instructor, because of the hold that martial arts has over someone, they'll say to you, oh, when I was 10 years old, I did taekwondo. So
it's always a
these
positive
kids
experience,
that are training right now, even let's just say your youngest daughter who was 13, she stops training right now. She's going to remember technique and remember training jiu-jitsu for the rest of her life.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's funny because the new generation of kids, UFC is not foreign to them. The guard is not foreign. Like most of these kids, even if they don't train jiu-jitsu, they know what the mount is. Yeah. Because they've heard it in vocabulary. It's part of society's vocabulary.
Let's go back to the topic we were talking about before, mentors. Now, one of the problems I've had in my life in things outside of jiu-jitsu is if I don't have a mentor, I quit very easily when I reach some kind of resistance.
You don't say.
But in jiu-jitsu, I am lucky to have a great mentor in Yanni that I know I can go back and I'm going to learn more because he is kind of the rock. And if you get kids involved in any martial art, they have a guaranteed mentor, especially you as their father. You're a great mentor in that aspect of it. And people should get involved in martial arts, especially if they don't have a father figure or any strong mentor in their life. It's a great way to find that mentor.
100%. And, I think I touched on this a little bit before. Like I have conversations with Jamie and with other instructors. I'm like, look, whether you realize it or not, there's somebody in that room that's looking at you being like, I want to be kind of like him or exactly like him when I grow up or end up that person I'm looking up to. That's why, the way you present yourself as an instructor, cut your hair, cut your toenails, cut your fingernails, even the way you dress when you walk into the school,
I'm not an instructor, so don't even touch me.
if you're still in your pajamas and flip flops, it tells me you don't have a whole lot of whatever during the day, and you're showing up to my nighttime class in the pajamas, like, you know what I mean, like, versus somebody else who comes, a little bit more put together, has a little bit more pride in themselves or whatnot. I'm not saying that you have to dress in a tuxedo, but like, take some care. And
what if somebody showed up in a tuxedo?
Yeah.
What if we showed up like Dumb and Dumber at your academy?
Dude, that would be awesome. That would be
We'll have to do that now.
I'll do it.
That'd be awesome.
What if we showed up in some pink geese?
I mean, it happens, bro. And that's the thing. It's like, do you allow people to use multicolored geese on your mat?
I should probably plead the fifth on this because I'm an Alliance affiliate. We're supposed to use Alliance geese, but I do allow all kinds of different things.
I like white geese. I don't wear any other colors.
I mean, I'm partial to white, but now I've added a blue and a black to my repertoire.
I just can't do it.
Your white geese are sharp, though. They look great.
Right?
Yes.
I love those. I got to get another batch made. So I'm not real strict about, geese color or anything like that.
Well, you've done a lot of traditional martial arts. How much do you bring that into your school, like bowing and stuff like that?
I mean, we bow. We don't. People call me professor in the school. Right?
Is that by request?
It's by I've never told anybody. Like, okay, there's this one interview where the guy says I told them to call me professor, but that didn't happen. But I think he put it in there just so that he could say, "Oh, he's a professor. That's his title." But here, at the end of the day, professor means what?
Teacher.
That's it. That's all it means. It doesn't mean Grand Poobah. It doesn't mean God. It doesn't mean my savior. It doesn't mean dad, mom. It just means, hey, teacher.
So you don't request that your adults now, call you professor. Are they able to call you Alan?
They are able to call me out. I don't correct them if they do, but somebody else on the mat will typically go up like, on the mats.
Is it Bebop or Rocksteady that say
it? No, actually, all my professors call me professor. They answer the phone, hey, professor. Like, to this day, all my black belts, when
I told him, it's just a sign of respect.
You stop it.
He doesn't like it. He's
but I don't like it because I had
but if it's
started. Alan doesn't know. I'm not going to reference him to go back.
Tell him your terrible story.
Okay,
I started Taekwondo as an adult, and I worked a job. I had a mortgage, and then I would go and train, and there would be kids on the mat or adults on the mat, and then I'm calling the instructor Grandmaster Sensei, or I'm like, come on, man.
Just sensei, whatever.
But then when I started jiu-jitsu, and George was a purple belt when I started, and I said to him, because I had come from Taekwondo, I said, what do I call you? He said, you call me George. I was like, oh.
Right. And
perfect.
Look, sometimes I call Renzo Master Renzo, and sometimes I call him Renzo. Like, it depends on, like, if it's like in front of a lot of people, and I know it's a more structured occasion, I call him Master Renzo just to give him that extra respect in front of people. But Renzo is a different type of person. He's that guy.
Yes. I mean,
he is one in a million.
Yeah, he's up there with like Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris. Like, I mean, he's one of the greatest martial artists of all time, Renzo. So like, yeah, when I'm like this, Renzo, what's up, Renzo? But I'll be like this with some of my students, and they'll call me Alan, and some of my students will refuse to call me Alan and will only call me professor, which is and I'm okay about either way. Because
I just think it's a nice thing because it just shows the respect, especially for people that are brand new. They understand that there's a hierarchy. If somebody calls you professor, you're going to say, don't do that.
No, I don't say don't do that. I say you can just call me Dave.
Okay, but what if they're like, I want to call you Grandmaster?
Well, I have somebody that calls me sir constantly, and I told him, I said, you can call me Dave. If you prefer to call me sir, go right ahead.
Good.
Because they're adults. I allow them to make that decision. You have bills, you have a job.
Right.
Come here. This is your time away to relax and to enjoy.
There's certain people that I grew up with, that were my father's and my parents' friends, close friends, that I always called uncle or mister. And I still call them uncle or mister. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a little title that you can tack on to somebody to give them that a little extra something. But I don't care either way. I know schools that people call Dave, Alan, whatever. They don't call him professor. I'm okay either way. And I think that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu. There's no real structure. It's kind of like, okay, are you comfortable with that? You're good with your curriculum? Cool, go do it. If somebody give you a black belt, that means you're a black belt. That means you're a thinking person that can make your own decisions and make changes to the art as you need to. If you guys ever end up in my office in Fort Lee, one of my instructor certificates for Jeet Kune Do from Paul Vunak, it says something to the effect of like, we give you the ability to change, add, or delete whatever you deem useful. And that's really that's Jeet Kune Do's kind of
I
philosophy.
never even heard that. That's great.
That's great. That really is. Yeah.
It's on my certificate. You guys got to go see it. But it was a really good thing, right?
So Ed, we're going to finish on that little note. Ed demands everyone call Yanni Grandmaster Sensei. So another thing that is becoming more and more common, I've looked into and I kind of understand the relevance or the origin. How do you feel about os?
Us, we use it as just a way to, like, when we bow, us. Yes, us. Like, I find myself doing it outside. Okay, you got to understand also, though, I have a big judo program at our school. So the judo program drives some of the culture within our school.
How do you feel about that? Is that okay with you?
Fine. It's fine. I'll allow it. But in my personal opinion, I still think that it's gross.
Gross?
Gross.
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 He likes dad jokes. This is what he...
Yeah, I'm a dad. I like dad jokes. I make a very bad dad joke in every episode.
But us is just something that, like, us.
I know. It's just, I hear people say it sometimes and I just cringe.
I've been in business meetings, like, totally, on my other side of some other business I may have, and like somebody will say something like, us. Yes, I meant yes. It's just a way of agreeing,
It's just funny.
Okay, so we're going to get ready to wrap this up here. I'd like to finish on how you see the future of jiu-jitsu playing out, in your opinion, in the next 5, 10, 20 years.
Okay, a lot of it's going to depend on this whole COVID thing. And like,
let's just play a perfect world. September, everything is back to the way it was in January.
Okay. I think there's a real future for jiu-jitsu. The reason being is because, society needs it. Society needs good mentors. Society needs good, safe techniques for law enforcement to use. Society needs tools for women to be able to defend themselves in the event of rape. Society needs other ways to work out and get physically fit that doesn't involve maybe going to a gym or riding a bike or jogging outside. There's so many reasons why jiu-jitsu is right for the future. The only, it really is very, very bright. I never thought, I don't know how much you guys know about my school, but I never thought I would have the amount of students that I have. It's not that I never thought, that's not true, because when I built the school, it's a big program, right? It's a big project to undertake, and people are like, you're nuts. And I kept thinking, if you build it, they will come. You have a good product, you have a good instructors, you have a good facility, people will want to train. And that's what I've been able to prove to people and prove to myself, that if you provide them a quality product and give them the whys to train and the hows to train, and those are really important, right? Because everybody needs a reason to step through that door and keep stepping through that door, and we need to provide those reasons. We need to provide those answers to them, and we need to provide relevant answers to society's challenges that are currently happening. So 5, 10, 15 years from now, who knows what's going to happen? But jiu-jitsu is jiu-jitsu. I know one thing for sure. Fighting is fighting. It's not getting really much more complex than what it already is, right? We have the 4 ranges of unarmed combat covered now. Now it's going into the 6 ranges of combat of fighting, which would include handheld weapons and projectile weapons. That would make it a little bit more relevant in certain areas at certain times. But right now it's up to us to make this relevant for our students, to give them the answers to why they're going to come back to training. And, we're going to have David and I have talked about it, we're going to have a real challenge getting people back on these mats if we don't start to show them why it's relevant and why it's needed in their life.
Is there a way we could translate that for this podcast as well? All the things you just said. We're trying to do the same thing for his gym, for the podcast, to spread the word, to positive.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Most people think jiu-jitsu is just jiu-jitsu. Oh, I could be a world champion and I could have the biggest and most successful school in the world. No, that's not true, because you could be a world champion jerk and nobody's going to come to you. You could be a world champion and not have any teaching ability and nobody's going to come to you. Right? You're going to be a world champion that's only teaching what's relevant to you and not relevant to everybody else.
Perspectives.
Right?
I don't understand.
You need different perspectives. We were talking about this with Emily, how you don't like to train with smaller people.
Didn't we adjust that in episode 10?
I don't know.
Didn't I give clarification?
Well, that's why you're doing these podcasts, for self-discovery, right?
That's right. And I've discovered more about myself. I'm just waiting for Ed to become more open-minded.
Right.
And maybe he'll discover something about himself.
Kidding me.
Anyone is welcome to go back and listen specifically specifically to episode 10, where I put clarification to everything that I've been trying to say and just didn't have the words to do so.
You know what I say?
So, Alan, is there anything else that you would like to say to us to belittle us before we go? Specifically, Ed, to make him feel like less of a man.
Come on, give us.
No, we want you specifically to feel horrible about yourself
I already feel horrible
before
about myself.
we leave.
I mean, don't take this the wrong way. I thought you guys would be taller. No, but I mean, you guys are doing a great job with this. I mean, you guys obviously have a really good relationship with each other. You trust each other with being able to cut on each other and make jokes. That's really important because, if you don't have that kind of understanding, like, look, I'm going to make a really horrible joke at your expense, and somebody you don't even know that well is going to be laughing at you. It's like, but it's personal stuff that you guys joke about, right? You guys are actually talking about, hey, this is the way he trains jiu-jitsu. He took some time off, and Ed, don't do that. And you're like, okay with being honest with each other and keep that up because that's what's going to make this interesting.
Well, I think that Ed's planning on opening a school, and by belittling me on this podcast is his way of trying to steal my students away.
How long have you had your school?
It's coming up. October will be 3 years. So
really,
we might open by then.
October 3 years. So you've had it a long time. Okay.
You've had it a little bit. Yep.
Okay. So let me ask you a couple questions. What's been some challenges that you've had, opening up a school?
Getting embarrassed in front of his students.
Challenges that I've had. I mean, from the beginning, the challenges were just trying to get the word out about the school. For me as a business owner, the advertising or marketing, trying to figure out ways to tell people about it. That was the biggest challenge in the beginning. But then after that, it was really, I can't do it all on my own. I cannot do it all on my own.
And that's a great thing you just said, because what were we talking about when we came through the door with wives and girlfriends, whatever? You can't do life on your own.
Can't do it on our own.
You can't open a school. Like, I look at the school that I have, and I'm like so fortunate to have so many incredible people around me. I'm a fan of people.
You have made connections with some really outstanding people, famous people, and
I'm stuck with Ed. Okay.
But that is not an accident. I hope everybody that listens to this can understand and listen to the way the energy that you put out is coming back.
Thank you.
To you.
That's
why you have it. It's not an accident at all. You are taking these connections and you're making them and turning them, and you're just rolling it into the next thing, and now you have 2 schools that you're a humongous part of, humongous part of the community. The history of North Jersey Jiu-Jitsu is, you're one of the pillars, and we are so happy to have you here, and we thank you so much.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. So, Ed, first I would like to congratulate you and thank you for trimming up this episode so beautifully.
Why are you talking about that now?
Because the episode is over. This is when we close out the episode. You just listen to the episode. If you liked the way that it was edited...
You trying to fluff me up, bro?
I am.
Don't.
Should I be doing that beforehand?
Don't fluff.
Sometimes, like you will hear in another episode coming up, Ed needs a little pick-me-up. And that was your pick-me-up. Don't ask for another.
I don't want any of them. I didn't want this one.
So, as you heard, I need to attack Ed's soft tissue in our challenge match. So that's pretty much his whole body. And I'm going to be working on the dim mock.
I was trying to follow you guys a bunch. Like you mentioned, 1,000 names and all this stuff. I didn't know what we were talking about.
So that's another thing. If there's anyone listening and you're like, how does he know all that stuff? I can just direct you to all the podcasts that I listen to, and that's why a lot of these names are familiar to me. All I do for 40 hours a week is listen to podcasts.
How come you're not better at doing them?
I have a lot to learn.
You need to retain some knowledge,
I've retained a little
You're
bit.
retaining names only.
That's fine. White belt at retention.
Did you train last night?
I did train last night.
How many people were there?
Oh, I don't know. You should ask me this beforehand. Now I have to try and count. Hang on.
Who cares?
Should I list them all off?
Is it lower than 10?
Lower than
like
10.
6?
6 or 8.
Did you have a better day? Because the other day we rolled and I just kind of smothered you.
That is because I'm weak.
Now, what is your knee?
Oh, that groin, that still hurts.
Was it bothering you yesterday?
Yes, but less. It hurt me more after the training was over. So
what are you going to do about it? What can you do about a groin?
I don't know. There is a little stretchy machine for a certain muscle that's by your groin. I'm not going to give them any credit because they're not a sponsor, though. I'll tell you while we're not recording. Yeah.
How about let's talk about sponsors that we do have. Core BJJ. You could follow them at corebjjnj.com as well as at CoreBJJNJ on all social medias.
Holy cow.
I've been practicing all day.
He did it. Have you been practicing?
I was thinking about it today,
That's hilarious. Don't forget, email us to the death podcast at
you having trouble with
gmail.com.
that?
I almost did the chorus. That's why. So that's to the death podcast at gmail.com, and follow us on all social media. Like us on all social media, all that stuff, including subscribing to YouTube at To the Death Podcast.
What do we have coming up next week?
I don't know, but I did like on the conclusion of episode 10, you didn't play Dennis's song. I'd like
you
to
just mentioned
thank
that. You haven't mentioned that since I did it.
Well, I wanted it on the podcast. And again, Dennis, it's not your fault. Ed picked a bad section of your song.
Dennis, I don't know what to tell you. The people that are listening currently are imbeciles. But gotta give the imbeciles what they would like, and they like Rob's song, so that's what they're gonna get until further notice.
I don't think you should call our fans imbeciles.
They are a bit dim.
I think he's talking to one person specifically, Peter Pan.
I saw Peter.
I know.
I gave him a real beatdown. He thinks he's doing good, and
He says that he did great with you.
He's
And Ron passed your guard.
He definitely didn't. I dominated him as well. I had a great day the other day, actually.
I think that we need to get them both on the podcast so they can tell their side of the story.
Nope. They're going to have to get a black belt to get on this podcast.
That's our criteria. We're brown belts. We shouldn't be on the podcast according to your criteria.
I make the rules.
Okay.
Well, we do have a non-black belt coming up in the future.
Oh, well, but wait a second. That's kind of contradictory, don't you think?
No, because...
Are you a governor?
Yes. No, but he's coming up, and he's black belt in other areas of his life, and it becomes apparent when we do the interview. But that's not coming up next week. Tell him what we have next week, David.
Next week, we have owner and head instructor of Precision Boxing and MMA,
Brian McLaughlin.
Another guy with a fantastic start to jiu-jitsu. He has some great stories. We don't get into too many stories, but you will be able to follow him on your own and find out those stories. I can't wait to hear that one. We really have to. I gotta know what happens.
Yeah, I was gonna put this together.
I gotta know what happens.
Yeah, so for everybody listening, when we record these, we're not doing them. We're not recording it Sunday night and putting out Monday. We record them in advance so we can continuously have guests for you and podcasts ready for you. So we record some in a row, and now I don't even remember what happens on the next one. What do you think? I want feedback. People, give me feedback on the clips, or I'm going to stop making them.
Nobody reach out to Ed. Please reach out to me personally. David Ross, BJJ, or how do you find me on Facebook? I have no idea. If you know me, you'll find me. Message To the Death Podcast. Send emails to the death podcast at gmail.com. Ed doesn't look at any of that stuff. I'll take care of it, and I'll erase it before he gets to see it. Do not private message or DM Ed. He does not respond well to criticism or compliments.
False. Well, the last part's true. I don't like compliments. But Jess did reach out to me, and it was very nice, and that's all I need. Just one, and then I don't need to bother her again.
No, Jess, I don't know what to tell you. I said I never say but I was
You're
just
flustered.
at a
You're
loss
flustered.
for words.
You thought she wasn't going to message me.
And I was hoping she didn't. I specifically told her, never message Ed.
Yeah, but I explained to her what happened, and she really appreciated being mentioned.
What did happen?
You were trying to take credit for all of her questions, and you
no.
didn't even want her name mentioned on the podcast.
No, listen. The only reason we did anything she asked was because of me. So, Jess, don't listen to him. He is full of it.
All right. Well, I have nothing else.
Why not? Doesn't more go on in your life?
No.
Well, all right.
All right.
Until next time.
This is To the Death Podcast.
No song?
There's a song after.
No, you're not going to sing? Do one of your goofy things?
To the Death Podcast. Is that good enough for you?
That was great. Can I just say hello to Mr. John Galante and Ed's mom?
That's her name, Ed's mom.
Yeah.
See you guys next week.